Today on Legally Us, the Blindside inspiration Michael Oher alleges adoption was a lie, Katy Perry's house drama, plus Below Deck's consent incident, and Lil Tay's death hoax. Could there be legal consequences? We got that plus so much more on today's Legally Us. Everyone, and welcome to Legally Us. I'm Christina. That's, of course, Neama Rahmani, President and CEO of West Coast Trial Lawyers. And Neama, oh my God, this Michael Oher story, there's so much to get to about this and so much to unpack.
Oh, wow. I mean, it's just amazing, and I can't wait to get into it. By the way, I'm loving the new studio.
Thank you so much. So happy to invite you into our new home. It's very exciting. So we're excited to be doing Legally Us in our new space. So thank you so much. All right, before we get into Michael Oher, there's some other news that we want to get to. Kicking it off with Katy Perry and Orlando Bloom. They are embattled in a lawsuit over their $15 million home. So the couple who purchased this Santa Barbara home back in July of 2020, they're set to begin trial against the man who sold them the house, who is Carl Westcott. He's an 83-year-old veteran and a businessman, and he claims in the paperwork that he lacked the mental capacity to sign off on their home. And he said that he didn't really understand the nature and probable consequences of the contract for a number of health reasons, including being on painkillers after back surgery for several days prior to the sale. Therefore, he thinks that this contract should be void or is voidable. So after coming to the realization that he had been under the influence at the time, he is saying that, like I said, this should be kind of null and void. So this is going to trial. So this is a very complex situation. So is this contract null and void? Can he say that I want this property back?
Well, Christina, void and voidable are very similar. Void means that it's just not a valid contract. And voidable means that the party that's trying to cancel it can do so. So it really doesn't matter whether it's void or voidable, but really the burden is on him, the elderly man, to prove that he lacked the mental capacity. You know, changing your mind, you know, signing an agreement that's a bad deal, none of those are a legal basis to rescind an agreement. And here, you know, we have oftentimes where people are involved in different types of contracts and they change their mind. They have buyer's remorse or they have seller's remorse. That's not enough. So it's really going to be up to a jury, but I would put my money on Katy and Orlando in this case, because these types of deals happen every single day in this country, and you can't get out of it just because you change your mind.
Right. And do we know who is even living at the home? Because, like I said, this was purchased back in July of 2020, so this has been going on for 3 years. So do we even know if anybody's even living in the home or what's going on with that?
I would guess the seller's still living in the home. So what happens is you enter into an agreement and then you open escrow. And until title is transferred in escrow, the seller still has title to the home. So this is something that's been going on for years. I mean, sadly, it takes this long for cases to get to trial here in California. It's usually about 2 to 3 years. So, you know, during this whole time period, sellers probably retained possession. And Katy and Orlando, they're suing for what's called specific performance. Usually doesn't happen, but normally if there's a lawsuit, we cover them every day, you know, and obviously Legally Us, we talk about them every week. But usually the remedy is money damages. You got to pay, you know, for what happened. Right. But property is unique in that you can actually force the other side to turn over the property. That means perform under the agreement, and that's what Katy and Orlando are asking.
Interesting. So you foresee Katy and Orlando, you know, coming out on top in this one. So what else are they asking for? Because I would imagine maybe they're asking him to pay for their legal fees and things like that as well, or are they just looking to kind of close and get into their home?
Well, I'm sure they want the home, and that's going to be number one. And really, when it comes to the legal fees, the terms of the agreement control. So normally, there's not a right to attorney fees unless there's a specific law, and there's no specific law that applies in this case. But the parties can contract for legal fees and say, hey, if there's a lawsuit, the prevailing party gets their attorney fees. So if the agreement, the original agreement between the parties is upheld, and if there is an attorney fee provision, then Katy and Orlando will not only get the house, they'll get their attorney fees paid for too.
Interesting. All right, we'll have to wait and see. All right, well, moving on. So this got a lot of people talking. So during back-to-back episodes of the Bravo series Below Deck, which aired last Monday, Luke came under fire when he climbed into Margot Sisson's bed naked after the power went out on their yacht. So producers stepped in after Luke tried to make a move on Margot. He was later sent to a hotel before being fired by Captain Jason Chambers the next day. So Luke wasn't the only crew member that was fired. Laura also found herself in hot water after after defending his actions, which prompted Aisha to tell Jason about Laura's own lack of boundaries with co-star Adam. So when Adam confirmed that he felt uncomfortable, Laura was also let go. So like we said, this got a lot of people talking. A lot of people were praising Captain Jason and Aisha for their swift removal of Luke. But can Margot press charges against Luke, considering this was all, it happened on camera and it could have been a sexual assault?
And there's no question she can press charges. I mean, it was a sexual assault.
Yeah.
If someone is naked and they make contact with you, that's exactly what a sexual assault is. So I agree. I praise the captain for doing the right thing, because had he not done so, then the management, maybe even the production company, may have been liable for ratifying this type of sexual assault. So whenever something like this happens in any workspace, doesn't mean if it's on set or somewhere else, management has to take action, and they took the right action here. So it's a question of, Luke, he's certainly subject to maybe some civil liability,
right,
but he may also be facing criminal prosecution if she decides to pursue that.
Definitely. And what about Laura? She was fired for defending Luke, and yes, her own actions were a bit questionable as well. Is that grounds for firing when you defend somebody else? Obviously, this wasn't really a defensible act, but she did defend him, and she continues to do so. But is that really a grounds for firing?
Well, usually, unless there's a for-cause provision in an employment agreement that basically says you can only be fired for a specific reason, most employee-employer relationships are at will. That means the employee can quit at any time. Same thing with the employer. They can fire the employee for any reason or no reason at all, as long as it's not a prohibited reason, of course, like sex, religion, national origin, or race. So here, it was well within the rights of the employer, to fire Laura for saying something that was very inappropriate. So I don't think Laura is going to have a claim here.
Got it. All right. Well, let's move on to the story that everybody is talking about. And so retired football player Michael Oher, who is, of course, the inspiration behind the Oscar-winning movie The Blind Side, filed a lawsuit that alleges the Tuohy family never adopted him and made a profit off the lie. So according to court documents obtained by ESPN, Oher claimed that Leanne Tuohy and Sean Tuohy convinced him to sign a document in order to make them his conservators, giving the family legal authority to make business deals in his name in 2004. So the documents say that Michael Oher discovered the lie to his jargon and embarrassment just in February of 2023, when he learned that the conservatorship to which he consented on the basis that doing so would make him a member of the Tuohy family, in fact, provided him no familial relationship with the Tuohys. So he is seeking to terminate the conservatorship and asking the court to prohibit the Tuohys from using his name and likeness. He's also seeking that the Tuohys pay him for his fair share of profits, plus unspecified and punitive damages. So the filing also claims that the 2009 movie The Blind Side paid the Tuohy family and their two birth children $225,000 plus 2.5% of the film's defined net proceeds, but he never saw any money. So he kind of spoke about this a little bit in his 2011 memoir, claiming that the Tuohys told him that there was a noticeable difference between adoption and conservatorship. So Sean actually spoke out as well, claimed that the conservatorship arrangement was made so Michael could play at the University of Mississippi. He said that he sat Michael down and told him, if you're planning to go to Ole Miss or even considering Ole Miss, we think you have to be part of the family. This would do that legally. They have contacted lawyers who told us that he couldn't adopt him since he was over the age of 18, and the only thing they could do was the conservatorship. So, Neama, there's a lot of moving parts in this one. So what exactly is this a conservatorship? Is this adoption? And was this a whole lie?
Yeah, there's so much going on here, and obviously we lawyers love it, but I do feel bad for Michael Oher. So let's just break it down. So the first is adoption. Only children can be adopted, so that's someone under the age of 18. And if someone is indeed adopted, it's, the law considers them the same as any biological child. They can inherit and so forth. So I think one of the allegations is that Oher was told that he was adopted by the family when the adoption never happened. I don't know if it was because of his age or for some other reason, but obviously that was a big part of the Blind Side movie, the whole adoption. So, moving forward, he apparently was put under conservatorship a few months after he turned 18. It sounds like he may have actually agreed to it and signed some papers that he didn't know that he was signing. So it kind of gives me a Britney Spears
Yes.
vibes a little bit, because
Totally.
we all know, covering it on Legally Us, that conservatorships are only appropriate for people who can't take care of themselves, right? They're in a coma, they have dementia, they have severe special needs. Not someone who is going to college and playing football. So
Yeah.
conservatorship isn't appropriate. It's not a way to bring someone into the family. So the fact that he was placed under conservatorship, there doesn't seem to be any legal basis, I guess. Again, unless I'm missing something, there's some significant mental health issues that haven't been reported. But Michael Oher does not belong under conservatorship, just like Britney Spears doesn't belong under conservatorship.
Going back to Sean's statement about him having to be in a family or being adopted in order to play at Ole Miss, that seems a little head scratching as well.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. You can, be 18 years old and go to college. There's no requirement that you have a family.
Right.
And even if there was such a requirement, a conservatorship doesn't make you part of a family. It just gives someone legal and financial control over you. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense what the family is saying. Now, of course, they're saying that, it wasn't millions of dollars or even hundreds of thousands. It was tens of thousands. If so, that might reduce the damages in this case. Really, but one big issue we're dealing with is the statute of limitations, right? Because that starts to run when Oher becomes aware of, that he was defrauded. And the question is, now we're almost 20 years removed from, these allegations here. So whether it's 2011 or some earlier time, when did Oher become aware of all this? And if so, has he blown the statute of limitations by waiting so long? So I think that's going to be another one of the big legal issues.
Sure. I mean, I think he said in his statement that he just kind of found out about this to his embarrassment just back in February. Are you surprised that it would take this long? I mean, he's gone through, the movie, his football career and everything like that, and now he's just becoming aware of this.
I mean, it's possible. So the statute starts to run when you discover the fraud, or you should have discovered the fraud. So obviously he's going to allege that he discovered it this year to preserve his claim. It sounds like the family may have some text messages where he's aware of all this. So it's really going to be probably the family's best defense. It's certainly going to be a black eye for them if they win on a technicality on statute of limitations grounds. But if you're litigating this case and you're defending the Tuohys, that's probably going to be their best argument.
Right, yeah, because I think he said, Sean said in his interview that they started noticing some things, and like you said, some family text messages back in 2020, 2021. So would that hurt Michael Oher's case that maybe he was kind of dropping some hints about this back then?
Yeah, it would. I mean, certainly, from the moment that he's on notice that he's been defrauded, that's when the clock starts running.
Got it.
If he waits too long, then his claims might be barred. But it's a really sad case, and obviously, if there's folks all over social media talking about Sandra Bullock and whether she should give back her Academy Award, and it seems like, at least if you believe Oher, that it was all based on a lie.
Right. It's incredible. I mean, what do you think? What do you foresee happening to this? Could something like this go to trial? Is he hoping to get back some of the money that they earned off of him? What's he kind of hoping for the outcome in this?
If I'm the Tuohys and I'm representing them, unless I can get the case dismissed on the SOL, the statute, I do everything I can to avoid this case going to trial. I pay the money that Michael Oher is owed, his fair share, because this is going to be a complete and total embarrassment for the family to take advantage of someone like this. So this is the type of case that you push to trial. Not only do you get hit for the money you owed, you might get hit for punitive damages too. So it's going to be really bad. It sounds like Michael will take his fair share and hopefully resolve everything, but it's certainly a bad luck when you have this type of in-family fighting, especially when the allegations are that you took advantage of a young man.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And what is the statute of limitations in this case?
So it depends on the case. Usually in most states it's anywhere from about 1 to 4 years for fraud. So it's a really state-specific statute, and again, the statute can be told if there's a continuing fraud and a cover-up. Told means it just doesn't start to run. So if I take advantage of someone and they're not aware of it, then the statute doesn't start running. But once they become aware, then the clock starts ticking and they got to move.
Yeah, what a strange and sad story. Well, speaking of strange and sad stories, let's move on over to Lil Tay, because they had her Instagram was compromised by someone who used the page to falsely claim that she was dead. So Meta confirmed to TMZ that they are helping her get her account back. Now, this happened after it turned out that Lil Tay's death announcement was a hoax. So this kind of took over social media last week. Everybody was talking about this. It took her over 24 hours to confirm that she was in fact not dead. But can Lil Tay sue Meta if she wanted to? Because this, they did say that her account was compromised.
She can sue, but I don't think she's going to have a particularly good case.
Right.
Usually when someone's account is compromised, it's because they give out their password, they log into the wrong thing, and so forth. It's going to be hard to prove that Meta was responsible for this one hack. And if so, the terms of use may also limit their liability. I have heard horror stories. You know, a lot of celebrities, they've had their Facebook or Instagram or other social media accounts hacked, and it's taken some time. Meta's team is not the easiest when it comes to verifying. They usually need multiple forms of identification and so forth. So I do give them credit for turning it around relatively quickly, within 24 hours. But I don't think Lil Tay is going to have a very strong case against Meta, because they're going to be able to argue. They're going to argue that it was something on her end.
Well, a lot of people are, you know, kind of throwing up some red flags and being like, maybe somebody in her team was maybe involved in something like this. Totally speculative. But if it was found out that maybe the hacker was connected to Lil Tay, what would happen in that instance?
Well, then it would be a very, very different story, right? If this was some sort of publicity stunt and you put out there that, you know, you're dead when you're not.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what sort of actionable claim there would be, what, you know, members of the public, what our damages would be from hearing something like that. But it would certainly be a terrible PR look to, you know, put out a fake story like that. And look, we've seen people do all sorts of strange and dangerous things, even for publicity. So anything is possible.
Anything is possible. Will Meta have to maybe crack down on, because I know that there's an age limit. You're supposed to be 13 years old to sign up to have an account. She's only 10, so somebody was clearly running her account for her or signed her up for her. Does Meta have to crack down on maybe something like this and like maybe do something with their age limits and things like that? Or is that just, you know, this is kind of like a one case thing?
I think they really should. There are a lot of children on social media. They shouldn't be. And, you know, here we're talking about a child that may have been dead, but there's all sorts of predators on there. I know we have kids. The last thing we want is our young kids on there seeing inappropriate, whether it's violence or sexual images or videos and so forth. So they really should hold the line, and when they're aware that there's someone on social media, I don't care if it's Lil Tay or, you know, one of the Kardashian children or Blue Ivy, everyone knows how old they are. They should really close those accounts and enforce their rules.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. Neama, thank you so much, as always. A lot of big stories this week, and it's always great to get your perspective. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Christina.
For more news content and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.